Hi, it's Darren for your 5:30 Eastern interview. Still a good time?
Yeah, we're on. How's it going?
It is great here, or as great as it can be during this pandemic. What about you? Are you in LA?
Yeah, correct. Uh-huh.
And are they keeping you pretty busy with doing interviews all day?
Oh, this week for sure. But no, I mean they're scattered. I've got plenty of other stuff to do. keep me busy in not only doing whatever I'm doing musically, but making sure the as many people as possible know about this Licorice Quartet project.
Right. Now, Licorice Quartet, the roots of it, from my reading, go back 2 to 3 years beyond you knowing everybody for years before that. But when did you know that this was going to be an EP and not just doing some gigs every now and then or jamming?
Well, for one thing, Tim lives in Atlanta, and Eric and I live in Los Angeles, so jamming and weekend gigs are not an option at all. And really, we decided that the EP would be the best thing to pursue because we didn't want to give the fans another album and then have them wait another 3 years before the stars aligned for us to give them more music. So it just seemed like a really practical way, much more logical way to like continue to have a greater frequency of offerings and not, I think people could focus on 4 songs at once, frankly. And this music absolutely requires more attention than the average listener is used to being asked for.
In putting 4 songs on this new EP, were there more than that recorded and you were already thinking about a second EP?
Yeah, I mean, we have 12 songs that are basically finished. We decided, though, this could go on forever if we didn't zero in on something. So we finished up the 4 songs that you have in front of you that we believed that sat well together, were closest to being done. They just needed to be mixed. So we took care of that. And, in the months ahead, we're going to be putting the finishing touches on the remaining 8 tracks, getting them mixed, and do another 2 EPs over the next year.
Was everything recorded in the same room or at least the same studio?
No, all over the place. So drums were done in one place, and a lot of the instrumentation was done in a couple others, and then a whole lot of it was done individually in our respective recording environments at home as well.
And I like that K-Tel style TV commercial you did it. Who came up with the concept?
Oh, great. Let's see. I believe that was a friend of Tim's who had come up with the concept, and then our management and another fan, actually, who's been super kind to offer up some of his video editing skills, help put it all together.
Well, it's impressive that you have that plus a music video plus some album trailers. Was all that done by the fan friend?
Yeah, yes and no. I mean, it's very collaborative, so some of it comes from us, some of it comes from our fan base. We have a lot of, even since the inception of this project, we've had a lot of fans, some of whom are musicians, some of whom aren't. They're just artistic people and everything in between. Some really savvy business people. Just very excited to help us realize this dream and been bending over backwards and cutting us a lot of favors. It's just been so cool. Everybody rise to the occasion.
Any idea if the EP that you're going to put out next is going to be called Volume 2, or is that still being determined?
Yeah. Threesome Volume 2, for sure.
Great. So there's so much else I want to ask you about, and I'll just go into that. The first thing is reading liner notes on my favorite albums. That's how I first learned about you. I learned about you from playing all the additional keyboards and percussion on albums, not from Jellyfish. Is that a common thing for you, that people discovered you that way?
No, it's mostly been from the associations with Jellyfish and Beck and Imperial Drag. Because unlike you and I, most people don't care who played the bass guitar or played the tambourine. So, very few people approach me based on outside work like that. But it's always flattering when they do, and I'm recognized for that because I pour my heart and soul into those projects just as much.
Now, I remember the Jerry Finn albums where I first saw your name, and that was only a year or 2 after Jellyfish's Spilt Milk album. Was that when it started to take off for you as a session player?
Yeah, I had always, well, a lot of my inspiration were session players growing up because, like you, I was fascinated by who did what and why and how that all came to be. And it was different for every record, even though there were like LA wrecking crews and stuff. There was a whole variety of ways that people ended up on each other's albums. And I simply didn't know what was involved in getting that happening. And in 1997, Imperial Drag had just disbanded, and Jerry Finn and this band he was working with reached out to me to see if I was interested in playing keyboards on their project. And they told me, well, Jerry told me, that the band had been a fan of Jellyfish and stuff, and they were a guitar-based band. So when it came time to make the record with Jerry, they said, well, we definitely need keyboards. And they said, it'd be so great to get that guy from Jellyfish, but we can't ask him. And Jerry said, well, I know Jellyfish. I know of them. Why can't we get him? And they said, well, because you don't ask people who are in bands to play on your record. That's not what they do. They're in their own band. And Jerry said, well, that's ridiculous. People who are in other people's bands play on other people's records all the time. You just have to ask. And he goes, here, let's find out his number. We'll reach out to him. And the worst thing is that he'll say, no, thank you, I'm not interested. But you got to find out. Well, when I got that call, I couldn't have been more excited because I didn't know Jerry. I didn't know the band at all. But I said, here's a group of people who paid enough attention to the keyboard work on those records to think enough of me to call me up. And I was just blown away. And I'd never done like an official session like that for strangers. Obviously, I've been in the recording studio hustling and doing what's needed there, but it was for my own music with my collaborators. And I was very, very nervous, but it couldn't have gone better, and Jerry couldn't have been a better first producer to work for. He was so easygoing, even though he was very meticulous. And it was just a fantastic experience. And then shortly after that, I joined the Beck band, and Beck was one of the biggest buzzwords on the planet at the time. And there were a lot of producers who were interested in the Beck sound. So me and a lot of the other guys in the band got offered session work in a way that none of us had known of before. And it was very, very exciting.
Was that first band Coward?
Correct.
Okay. When you're from Long Island, you know the Long Island bands that got record deals. So
yeah,
I pieced that one
exactly.
together. And usually when I see Roger Manning Jr. played on a record, it says keyboards and maybe additional vocals or percussion, that kind of thing, but it's not clear what you did. For the people that are going to be reading and or hearing this, is that you playing the keyboards on the Blink-182 song, All the Small Things?
Correct. Yeah.
So that's one of those things where tens of millions, if not hundreds of millions of people have heard your work. Are you often in like a CVS or a Walgreens and hear that and you go, that's me?
Well, certainly with those bigger name bands, that does happen. It never happens with Jellyfish, which is fine. But yeah,
sure.
No, I'll never forget actually. So when the Blink thing happened, I was familiar with them, but I wouldn't say you can call me a fan. I wasn't like I was just peripherally aware of them, and I knew they were starting to get some definite attention in the K-Rocks of the world. And Jerry reached out to me, and Jerry's like, I don't care what he has on the table. I will play with him. I will look for any excuse to be in a room with him and make music because he was just that amazing producer and person. So we did the Blink stuff, and the sessions went well. The guys were great. Got along with them fantastic, and still talk to Tom to this day. But after the session was over, it was like any session, you just go on with your life. Well, that album turned out to be 10 times bigger for them than any record they'd had before or that anybody, I think, really thought it could be. And I remember being in my car and hearing the song come on. I was like, right, this is the album I did with Jerry with these guys, 3 or 4 months ago now, whatever it was. And I remember having this feeling, like you just said, which was, oh, wait, compared to everything else I've played on in recent times, this is being heard by more people. This is an actual hit that I have a small contribution on. And that was a very, novel and curious feeling and sensation and just awareness because it was so new, and it was super cool. It was great to know that something that I'd worked on for so long, cultivating and perfecting, was of use to somebody in a way that helped them achieve their dreams. I mean, it's just this great communal, collaborative thing. And Blink was definitely one of those early big bands that I was invited to work with.
Exactly. That discography just keeps growing with major artists. So another thing that I know about you through our mutual friend Linus Dotson is that you eat raw. What is it that got you into raw foods to begin with?
Well, I did. I was a raw vegan, or I ate raw vegan for 8 years in the 2000s. And it was I had been since 1993 experimenting with all kinds of health modalities in an attempt to heal out of a variety of uncomfortable physicalities. I wasn't dying of anything, fortunately, but was pretty uncomfortable in my body and wasn't getting the information or care that I felt I needed from the regular medical community. So I began exploring the wild west of alternative medicine and diet, and the raw vegan 8-year detour was just one of many experiments I conducted. I called it guinea pigging on myself, because you're just basically auditioning stuff, and like anything in life that you want to master or get good at, it requires tons of information and great wisdom and knowledge, and like a lot of things, you can learn a lot about one area, but you might not have it all together in the other. So even studying as a musician, right, you might have your specialty. You might know all there is to know about guitar technique and guitar sound processing with foot pedals and amplifiers, but you might not know the first thing about writing music. You've never put pen to paper, and you don't know how to take all your awesome music and put it down on manuscript for somebody else to play or to get your ideas across, right? That would be like you're imbalanced in that respect. It's not wrong. I'm not saying it diminishes the person as a musician. I'm just saying there's a lot to learn if you are a competent, well-rounded musician. Well, there's a lot to learn if you're a competent, well-rounded, physically healthy individual on the physical plane. I'm not talking about spiritual, because that's a whole other conversation, which also plays into total health, in my opinion. That scene, it was a bit of a scene in LA at the time. Certainly Santa Monica, Venice, there was a community of people who were thriving, eating this way, as well as doing some other things to manage their health. And it made a lot of sense to me, and I pursued it. And for the most part, it served me very well until about 5-6 years in. And I always said to myself, because I'd been vegan before, and I'd tried all kinds of things, I was kind of like, well, I either give this the old college try and do it right, or what's the point? In other words, I really wanted to test it. And you can't just do that like a lot of folks do with a 3-month fad diet or something. The body has a lot of reserves. You can abuse the hell out of the body before it really starts telling you if something's not serving you. It starts telling you, hey, you've worn me out. We're all out of reserves. Enough is enough, right? I mean, somebody can smoke for years, and then maybe around year 9 or 10, they might develop some lung issues. But those first 4, 9, or 10 years are like, I can smoke. I feel good. Makes me feel good. I love it. There's no downside. And they would not have been experiencing any downside. That's the body's incredibly resilient, in more ways than we give it credit. So about 7 or 8 years into the diet, I started getting some signals from my body that were telling me, hey, listen, pal, you better take some inventory, because this is, you've created, in your attempt to do your body a lot of good, you've created some imbalance, and some things started to show up that were alarming, to say the least. And I took the rest of that journey and figured my way out and conducted the experiment. And I'm not interested in, obviously, adapting that for any other part of my life. I stopped doing that in 2010.
Noted. Well, two quick questions, and then you are a free man. And the first one is, as an authoritative guy, is it Moog or is it Moog?
Technically, it's Moog because from the horse's mouth, Bob said that the name has Scandinavian roots, or whatever the etymology, whatever the roots of words are. And but his wife was a school teacher, and all the kids would make fun of her name because she taught elementary school, and they'd say, they'd call her a cow and say moo like a cow and blah, blah, blah. So they decided really early on, let's just tell everybody, let's change the pronunciation to Moog. So for the duration of the company, when he finally started the company, it became more of a commercial entity. It was Moog for all intents and purposes. But technically, it's pronounced Moog. So, for example, they had a keyboard called the Rogue. That was one of their models. The whole point was for it to rhyme. So it was a Moog Rogue. But obviously the temptation is to call it Moog. That's what it looks like. So for everybody that they told, no, actually it's Moog, and this is the registered trademark name and so forth, you had 10 more people just calling it Moog. So it became hard to manage. And I think, towards the end of the 70s, he was just like, call it whatever the hell you want. We give up.
Well, praise to you for the Moog Cookbook, we'll call it that. And in closing,
Thank
Roger, any last words for the kids?
Oh, man, just colossal thank you. We are in awe that the fans have stuck with us for so many years, including all the dry spells where we were busy off doing other things that weren't, original music. And I was happily surprised when I put my solo albums out in the 2000s, and then 8 years later, finally glamping in 2018. And now, there's no shortage of material that we have for people in the years ahead here. It's always in the works, and I'm very happy that they're still as eager and excited to support us and be a part of this exchange. And that's the good thing about some of these internet options for sharing music with your fans. There's a lot of experiences and fan incentives. They can get involved in a way that you just didn't see in the 70s and 80s, and so that's very exciting. And I'm glad we can all share that together at this time.
Well, definitely looking forward to Volume 2. So thank you so much for your time, and hope to see a live show at some point.
Oh, thank you so much. And I appreciate the exposure and the interview. Thank you.
Paltrocast.